This is probably one of the hardest stories that I've ever had to talk about. And for a long time, I really just didn't. But a lot of people would always wonder how I got the scar that's on the left side of my face. And I never really talked about it. But to just get past it, I think that it's about time. It was September 27th, 2020. And I was meeting one of my favorite people, my friend Naki, who is just like one of like a sister to me. And we were having dinner. We went to Lower East Side, and it's always just cackles and jokes with Naki. Like we're just having a good old time and everything. So as that went through, we had dinner. We go about our thing, have a couple drinks. I leave, and as I'm walking through LES, I decided to just walk a little bit. Having a great night. The weather's good. I ran into two other friends that happened to be down in there, so I stopped and said what's up to them. And we had a cute little giggle. I had a drink with them, and then I headed on home. I decided to take a bike just because, of course, everybody knows I love a city bike. But anyway, I got up to my block. At the time, there was no city bikes in my area, so I used to have to dock the bike maybe about 10 to 12 minutes from where I lived. So I would dock the bike and I would walk up typically from the train, where the train station that's close to me, I would walk up. So there's a bodega that always I would always go to. It's on the corner of my block, and I know the people in there. Like everybody's bodega. You go in there, you kiki, you joke with the people, blah blah blah. So I walk up and I go inside the bodega, and I think I was getting a sandwich and a Dutch or something like that. And while they were making it, there was a young boy that always worked there, and there was a couple that worked at the sandwich stand. And there, it's a really important part of the story to the couple. But we would always just joke and laugh and always just be really funny when we go in there and just, I wouldn't stay in there longer than I needed to. But in the time that I was there getting my sandwich, we would just talk. So a guy came into the bodega, and while I'm standing at the counter, he comes over and tried to sell me some headphones. So he's talking to me about these headphones, telling me I need them. I'm telling him, just casually, no, thank you. And usually that works. But this guy was like being really, really adamant and ignorant. So he started grabbing on my clothes and telling me, come on, you can get it. You rich. You la 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 la. And I'm talking back to him, and I'm just like, yeah, that's what's up. Like, I know I'm rich, but it's like, that's why I don't need no headphones. You are selling them. So eventually, the guy wants to kind of do this little comedy skit, and I always got time for that. So we went back and forth, having our little comedy or whatever like that. So eventually, he started noticing that the people that worked at the bodega were kind of laughing at him and not with him, and he started to get a little adamant. So that's when he started calling me fags and you a faggot, a la 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 la, you a punk, and all this other kind of shit. So when that starts happening, usually you just walk away from niggas. Like it's really nothing worth keeping and involving yourself in because people are really just crazy in these streets. So at this point, I'm just ignoring this boy. I'm getting my sandwich, but he's kind of like taunting me and keep just saying more shit as I'm getting my sandwich and I'm working my way out the door. So I get my sandwich. I say bye to the boy, and the guy was still in the store. So the bodega happens to be on the corner of my block. That's what made this even just worse of a situation. So when I would leave out, they always leave the trash on the sidewalk. So usually I leave out of the bodega and I walk into the middle of the street just to be off of the sidewalk and like rats run across your feet. So as I'm walking down the street and I pass one of the cars, I actually look to my right and I realized that the guy was walking out of the bodega. And when I realized that, I got super super nervous because I live alone in New York for one, and it was just a really just long night, and I don't know this boy and whatever like that. So he wasn't as close to me as I thought, but I kind of just picked up the pace and started making my way down to my building, which is literally just feet away from the bodega. There's only another apartment building between us. So as I am walking on the thing, I'm trying to keep my eye on him through the cars, but not really looking. So make my way from the sidewalk and I cut over, I mean, from the street rather, and I get across to the thing and I run up to the door and pushed in the code. And as soon as I buzzed the door, I pushed it open. I went to go close the door, and he was standing right in the doorway. He put his foot into the door and literally was pushing the door open. He's, what's all that fucking shit you said in the bodega? He's literally making this thing. I'm screaming. I am terrified at this moment. And I'm in my doorway. And there's this funny thing about like living in New York City. People will just know something's happening and just mind their business in this way. And I really thought that that was kind of the case and what was happening at this time. But like nobody really came. And the hallway in my building is just really narrow. So he makes his way in the door and he's literally yelling at me like, the fuck you do, fucking faggot, all this other kind of shit, calling me all his names. I'll fuck you up, blah, blah, you think you're slick. And I'm just literally like frozen sitting there, but I just start talking shit back. I'm fuck you, fuck you. What are you gonna do at this point? I'm like so raged up. I drop my bag of stuff and I'm just like, what the fuck is up? Like, blah, blah, blah. He comes lunging at me and I'm just like, just defend yourself. Just go to like fight this boy. He literally jumps at me a few times and I like jump back. I'm not a fighter. Like everybody knows that. And he hit me in my face. And when he hit me, like I just had a rage. Like I just blanked out and went haul assing towards this boy. But when he hit me, he ran. And the rug in the doorway was open, so the door never closed when he was there. He just went running out of the door. And when he hit me, I fell back and I went lunging after him. And when I got to the door, because the thing had stopped, I had to stop to grab the door. And that's when I looked down and realized that I had blood coming from my face. I ran outside of the door and I'm still looking for him. I did not know how bad it was, but when I came out, the guy from the bodega was in the middle of the street, like looking down the street or whatever like that. And he sees me. He's like, yo, are you okay? You okay? And I walk over to a car and I look and I just have blood over like my shirt. It's blood on the ground. I'm just bleeding. So the guy from the bodega calls the police. I take my shirt off. I'm holding it onto my face. The guy said, oh my fucking God, like he was in the store. He kept saying, I'm gonna fuck him up, fuck him up. And we didn't think anything because I had left like a couple minutes before him. Or maybe just like a minute or two, but they didn't really say, know what was going on. But the guy came out knowing that like I said, I always go into this bodega. So they call the cops and the ambulance. They come. I'm literally holding it and I'm kind of not shook or anything. Like my adrenaline was so high and I had like some liquor in me. So I'm just like standing there with this thing on my face. And the cop asked me to describe the boy. And I have a photographic memory. I'm like, he is black. He had a short haircut. He looked a little disheveled, like he didn't have a shape up. His hair was about this long. The t-shirt looked a little dingy. He had on Adidas. He had on like some jeans that looked like they had not been washed. I give them the most detailed description of this boy. And they put me in the ambulance and they take me to the hospital. While I'm in the hospital, the young lady that comes and she starts working on me, she takes off my shirt and has all of that and she's looking at the cut and she starts talking to me. She happened to be from Maryland also, like me, and she's just kind of talking and easing me through it. And she told me, she said, I don't know if you want to hear this, but she said it might help, but whatever he cut you with was very sharp. She said, so because of that, there is no ragged scars and you won't have like a deep scar and it won't be a really bad thing. She said, but where he cut you, however the altercation happened, he was minutes from slicing my ear. And maybe if I would have just moved slightly shorter, it wouldn't have hit my ear or my face. He would have hit my neck. And that would have just been... Oh God, even talking about this is just so heavy. That would have just been just a whole nother thing. But he really tried to hurt me. Like he really tried to hurt me. The nurse comes and she starts stitching me up and she tells me that I'm gonna need 25 stitches. And I am just trying to do everything to kind of keep my spirits up. At the time, I was using this funny filter like Squidward, and I would do this little funny face, and I was just doing that. But then it really just started to set in me that I have been in New York for 10 years and never had an issue, like no anything. And then it's like something like this happens on my block. So she stitches me up, and I'm sitting there, and eventually the officer that came to with me in the ambulance came to the hospital, and he came and he told me that they had caught the guy, and I just was so relieved, and I just felt so validated, because it's like, I was glad that I remembered so much, and what had happened, it just really, really, really blew me. The guy told me that they caught him, XYZ. They showed me a picture and told me that eventually I would have to go through that process. So after they caught him, a lot of it was just the healing process. And part of that was just me always just having the biggest problem with the fact that, like, when I was in the bodega, like, they never said anything. They didn't put the boy out. They didn't tell him get out. Like, I was a frequent customer, and it just always pissed me off. So from that day, I never stepped foot back into that bodega. I just swore to myself that I would never. And I would move on. And when I would come up from the street, I would never go into the store or anything like that. Um, some time it went by. I was contacted by the police. They would come to the house, and eventually that made me feel nervous, only because there was police like coming to speak to me, and these boys that hang around, like, they watch that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, God, now they're gonna think that I'm like snitching on this boy, or just whatever comes with that kind of shit. So I have to go to court, and I eventually have to testify in front of a bunch of people in a jury to tell them what happened. He was not in the room when I did it, but I had to tell them everything that happened, and what happened that night. They asked me, did I know him? They wanted to know if it was premeditated, like, did I have any history? And I did not know this boy from Adam. Like, I just had no idea who he was. We handled that. That was a part of the process. They took pictures of my scar. Um, they had me fill out just a bunch of paperwork, and I had to do a lot of information regarding this boy. So my area just became like super uncomfortable for me at that time. I would just come around, and I kind of started going through the back way of my building and having Ubers let me out there just so I wouldn't have to go. After that, healing was just coming slowly. I went to go get the stitches out, and several months down the line, something really changed in this ordeal. And it really changed me in a way, because I've never gotten over the pain of just what that boy did to me. And just sometimes would have anxiety attacks when I was out. One night I was coming home, and I was on the opposite side of the street, where, so inside of the store from where the sandwich counter was, you would be able to see people walking, towards the store or whatever. But I lived on that block, so one night I was coming home, and the wife of the sandwich guy that worked there came running out, and she saw me. She said, "Oh my gosh!" And she was Spanish. She spoke like very little English, but we could understand each other. And she's like, oh my gosh, how are you? How are you? I've never seen you anymore. La 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 la. I thought something bad happened." And she just kind of went into this like really like emotional state of just like, "Oh my God, you're okay." And I tried to receive it. Like, I tried to really just hear it. And I just started broken down. I was like, how could y'all let this happen? Like, y'all let this boy stay in there and like harass me and call me names and do all this shit. Like, I come to your store all the time. Like, I know you guys and all this kind of stuff. And this woman started crying in front of me. I'm getting emotional. She started crying in front of me, and she told me that night, when they took me in the ambulance, the cops had come back into the store, and they asked for the footage, and they asked for the video cameras of what had happened. And they told them, and the lady said that she asked the cop, could she speak to him? And the guy said yes, but she didn't want anybody to speak to him. And she took him to the back. And she told the cop that the same boy that had been bothering me, the reason why she was so quiet when the boy came into the thing, is that that boy had been harassing her. and would follow her home sometimes and bother her. And her husband started working the shift that she worked to protect her. And he would sit in the car to pick her up just because of this. And one night, when the boy was bothering her, he didn't know who her husband was. Her husband followed the boy home, and that's how the cops knew where he was. The woman told them where he was, and I just started crying. I started crying just because I was just so mad and I was so angry, and I felt like they just would had did nothing. I thought that they had did nothing, and this whole time I was just so happy. Like, I thought that my description of this boy is how they caught him, and the whole time it was this woman. And she gave me a hug, and I just started crying in this lady's arms. I said, "I'm so sorry," because I was so sad. And I was just so hurt, and I was just so sad. But had that lady not gone through what she went through and knew where this boy lived, they might not have ever caught this boy. But she told them, and I apologized for her, and something lifted off of me in that moment. It was just the grief of just like thinking that I was just so betrayed by them, or like that they didn't do anything or whatever, and like to not know that she was behind helping me in that whole situation. And I never would see her anymore. When I would come home, I still don't go into that bodega. And eventually, one day, I was walking to the house, and I saw her, and she wanted to speak, and I could see that she wanted to speak. So I spoke to her first, and she spoke to her. She nodded her head and gave me like a bless me sign. And it was just so angelic in a way of just sometimes when bad things happen, you feel like no one is going to help you, or like no one is helping you. But there are decent people in this world that sometimes you just don't know that on the back end they are playing silent angels and really connecting the dots. And without that woman's help, I would have never, ever been in this situation. But as that's happened, I've now kind of adjusted to having the scar on my face. Even when it was healing, so many people would tell me, they'd stare and they would say, I don't want to say this, but I love your scar. I think it gives your face so much character. And as hard as that is to hear, I would just try to receive it and try to process it and just understand that this is now a part of me. It's a part of my image. When I got the stitches out, I started looking at old pictures and just realizing that, my face will never not be without that scar. But our scars tell our stories, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad, but they definitely connect us to times and lives lived. And to this day, it's still one of the most traumatic things that I've just ever gone through, and I'll never forget being assaulted that night. It's just something that you never forget.